So September 1st, 2017. I'm an avid elk hunter from north central Alberta. I only archery hunt elk because I find it challenging, and the adrenaline rush is like no other. I was privileged enough, but the only one that provided a sighting of any sort was something I cannot explain to my logical brain. The area is near Long Lake Provincial Park in a grazing lease bordering the park boundaries. From May 1st to November 1st, I would lock the gates at all access points. I had permission from the Grazing Association at the time to do my thing on foot access only. I took my small family up to the end of the access road to a mud hole a mile into the timber that allows you to drop into a very large valley or into the plateau of 200 sections of community pasture. I had taken my 4x4 truck with my quad loaded to the end of the access, so they could enjoy a nice campfire and the comforts, while they hiked the pasture that is at the valley's edge and locate and call the elk in the plateau of 200 sections of community pasture. I had taken my 4x4 truck with my quad loaded to the end of the access, so they could enjoy a nice campfire and the comforts, while they hiked the pasture that is at the valley's edge and locate and call the elk in. I've had wolves come to elk calls before, and had bears decide to come investigate. This is not my first experience having things go sideways after walking maybe 1.5 to maybe 2 miles from the truck. I found a nice drainage leading into the valley with a great elk trail where I let out an echoing elk bugle. It resonated off the valley walls perfectly. I had a crude response in the southeast. The valley is very noticeable, so I figured it must be at least 2 miles across the valley, so I hiked slower than slow when locating elk, and about 50 more yards 5 minutes up the edge, I heard what sounded like a bugle from a long shot bull. Same sound. It was deep, like a very immature bull or something else could mimic that sound. Not convincing, but sparking curiosity as I've heard very different varieties of answers before, and many horrible elk calls. But I wanted to see who covered those 2 miles across the swamp and nearly vertical valley wall in 5 minutes. This crude bugle came across as a bugle, but not exactly toned correctly. It had the tone, but not the octave changes. After about 10 minutes, I heard a log snap, a log about 100 yards into the thick stuff, which I interpret as an opportunity to get in position. I sherped out a couple cow calls and began moving in the sound's direction, into the wind about 50 yards, to where I think will come from the thick brush. I loaded an arrow, locked my eyes wide, and I sat with my ears pinned. I'm not hearing a sound for roughly 5 minutes, and then the bomb dropped. I called movement and began to realize that I'm seeing a human-shaped head, more egg-shaped than mine, black peeking out from behind a large poplar tree, just the top half of the head. As soon as my brain made sense of what I was seeing disappeared in a flash of trees and logs snapping. As it retreated back into the valley, I did the same, but went back to the truck. When I got back to the truck, my wife asked if I shot the bull as she heard it calling and heard it crash off. I told her I missed her and packed her up and left. I still hunt that area, but I avoid the valley and show respect when I'm on Thatland. I've heard things running at night. I've been rushed to a campfire by heavy footsteps, and the elk are consistently dwindling in that area. There's something out there, and it has been very curious. Find out how the provincial parks are all somehow a hotbed for activity. I'm a very seasoned big game guide, 25 years now. I own and operate a 90,000-acre working ranch in southwest Colorado, guided elk cameler hunts on site. I had a client sitting with me, overlooking some quake glasses a few bulls over from us. To the dark timber was ranged at 34 yards using a Leica angerfinder. Had 52 70-pound large rock thrown uphill at us. It literally landed less than a few feet from where we were sitting, yes, uphill. They both saw the boulder coming up, and over there were brush at US never saw nor heard anything but branches snap. I picked up the boulder and gave him my best toss back downhill, landed less than 10 feet. From my position, my client quickly gathered up his packing, rifle, and said, and I quote, "Get me the hell out of here once." Back at camp, he quickly gathered his belongings and left. This is one of several incidents on a ranch. I don't give a rat's ass what anyone believes or not, but when a client has booked the past 7 years, as you say, hunting, I'm out, that says a lot considering the dollars you paid to be there. I know exactly what's on this ranch. I was born and raised on it. I guide full-time for mountain lion, mule deer, elk and bear. There were no humans, no damn bear, and no other criteria. There's only one explanation. Into 016. I was on a camp tour till I found 19-inch bear footprints all around camp. They twisted a caballer's canvas outfitter tent into it. Twisted a caballer's canvas outfitter tent into a small pile of trash. The aluminum poles were twisted up like it was wringing out a washcloth. The stove was smashed nearly flat. Later that night, cleaning up the freak show, it was well after dark. I had a one-man packed a tent in my saddle box. I set up camp for the night with the trusty 300 Ultra ready to go. I got one of those rifles too, and I'm pretty sure that should do the job. I was exhausted from an all-day riding and cleaning up the demolished camp. With a large fire going, I settled in for what I knew was going to be a nerving night. To my dismay, the only thing that what happened was a series of very unusual vocalizations, not human and not animal, just a chatter-type vocalization. At times were both calm and deep, but more aggressive by the end. Not one single sighting happened that night, absolutely beyond my grasp. The next day we packed up and went home. Hello, thank you for taking time to read this. I had an insane situation, full of the situation, just feet away from me, one early morning here, on the east coast of the United States. I've been a reverend for nearly 25 years and have always made it to walk, struggling church for a season, which required my fam to exercise and meditate as much as my weekly schedule allows me to. Oh my God. My face is frozen. I was asked to help out at a Illy to move to a new area. The town was nestled close to 3 adjoining East Coast states. I found a local park with plenty of acreage to walk, and it seemed very peaceful. I had been using the park for 10 months. When the encounter took place, either 10 months, but attributed them to being in a new herd, some unusual noises through area, with new sounds, etc. There was a path in the back of the park that was sort of shaped like a very large horseshoe, and in the middle of the path grew tall wild grass grey, and the grassy area was usually filled with birds at tickets, with bird activity, which I liked. One early morning I entered that path like I normally do, and it was literally dead quiet, and there were no bird sounds at all. It hit me immediately how odd that was. I took maybe 25 to 30 steps into the path, then heard rustling to my left in the tall grass. I thought maybe I disturbed some sleeping deer. But then I heard what wound like a horse blowing through its mouth to my right. As I looked to my right, I saw what looked like a large heavy man covered in hair just standing there, sort of facing slightly away from me. It just stood there, and I was struggling to understand what I was looking at. Then the noise to my left exploded through the grass away from me, and I thought I could see the grass moving. I never saw what was there. My head started ringing, which was really weird. I guess it was adrenaline. Then I looked quickly back to my right, and this thing standing there quickly shot down to the ground to its left and crawled away at a speed that seemed completely impossible. I'm not sure how to explain how it crawled away, but the only thing I can equate it to is an insect. It looked like a long hairy insect crawling at high speed. Once he was moving away, I turned and ran like a scared little boy. I had no idea what to think or say afterwards. I've tried to sort it out and pray a lot. I guess my question at this stage is, why don't we know about these things? Right, I had a parishioner years ago come into my office to talk and eventually get his siding off his chest. I really believed he believed what he had. I saw him, but I had no information or any way to relate to him, sadly. I do now know. I know this all sounds far out, and after all this time I'm still attempting to sort it out. But this really happened, and I'm suspicious about what these things are and their purpose here on Earth. I now take my early morning walks on the paved roads and sidewalks in my neighborhood. I'm not sure I'll ever be comfortable enough again to be around wooded areas. I'm not a wimp, but from what I experienced that morning, it's not something I'd like to see or feel again in this lifetime.
You can call me BJ. I'm a veteran because I'm a veteran from Oklahoma. This has been a long time coming. And after watching your videos, which, in my opinion, are the best thing on the internet but none, I truly believe it's time to share this dot with someone who I know won't judge or belittle my sanity in any way. Thank you for that. You have no idea how much that is appreciated, and sir, you're absolutely very welcome. I've got you back. And so do literally thousands of other people on the planet, and thousands of people watching your story today. They have your back too. Okay, you're not alone, all right, because of the happening that took place in Nevada in 1979, just outside of Bridgeport. On the back side of the Sawtooth Range, a friend of mine had asked my assistants to help track down whatever was killing his sheep and 12 of his dogs who were in the military and have hunted and lived in the outdoors the majority of my life. Being from Oklahoma is what you do. I arrived at my friend's place early in the morning and asked him to take me to the site of the last kill, which had happened only 2 days previous ago. There were signs everywhere, especially good, but that was quickly ruled out when he told me that several of his sheep had been dragged almost a quarter mile to an outcropping before they were I ate. After several minutes of circling the site, I found what I was looking for. Cat axe, and not a small one by any means. I told him he could go with me if he wanted, but this was going to be a long and tiresome search. So I advised him to contact the game warden and let him know our plans, just to make sure we stayed on the right side of the on. This ordeal halfway through the day, I climbed one ridge almost 2 miles from where I started. It was a bright day with the temperature pushing 70. I thought about going back and starting again the next day, but the trail was fresh, and there was what looked like a couple of small openings and a rock face above me. I came within 50 yards of that first opening in the rock, and when I lost the track, I circled around above and below me, to no avail. I returned to where I had originally lost the track and discovered fresh tracks heading back the way it came. He got in behind me and had evidently watched me approach. I started back down the way I came, which ran around one side of the ridge. As I started onto the curve of the ridge, where I knew where then to be a large overhanging rock shelf above head level, I stopped and checked to make sure I had a round chamber and safety off. Just as I started to move on, I heard and felt something very big hit the ground behind me at the same time. There was a scream from the cat that sounded like it was half muffled. I peered back around, a cracking sound from the cat, which immediately went limp. The being looked at me for a couple seconds, then pitched the cat out and down the ridge, where it landed a good 50 yards downhill. I couldn't move, the being didn't move either. Finally, I stopped and I lay my rifle on the ground instead of my arms up, my palms out. The being, after several seconds, did the same thing. It finally turned and leaped back from a standing position a good 15 feet up above me and kept going up the ridge till it was out of sight. Jesus Christ, is totally shocked, which has never happened to me ever. I've been in combat. I'm not afraid of a damn thing or a person. But this being had me freeze with me mouth open, the best I could describe. This thing would be enormous. It stood at least 8 of 5 to 600 pounds, a sloping forehead, flat, broad nose, and very little, if any, hair on its face. I couldn't remember if it had ears or not. I don't remember seeing any of his chest, feet tall, and my guess is that it had to weigh in the neighborhood had before. His feet across his shoulders and arms were massive. Its biceps had to be in the 30-inch range, and its thighs were double that. Easy. I don't recall any smell, but I probably wasn't too concerned about a smell at the time, and yes, it was a Malay. Got back to the house of my friend at around dark, still not quite sure if what I'd seen was real or not. I tried to explain to him what happened. He laughed and accused me of being under the influence of altitude sickness. Rage board is always up in elevation. I've never shared this with anyone since I tried to tell him every now and then. I see that I wish I could have said. I think he meant to say every now and then. I remember I wish I could have said thank you for saving my ass or something.